if I'm streaming to the right channel. I'm gonna check that in a second. Looks like I am. You're gonna hear a lot of echo that in a second. Alright, yeah, so we're definitely on the right channel. I'm gonna wait for a couple people to go in. It still says 2. Is anyone in? Yeah, so basically what this stream is gonna be about is I took a lot of notes. Oh wow, 8 people. Hello. About NVCAP turning into a non-profit. I took a lot of notes. So basically, I kind of just want to say, where we're at. Obviously, I could get a lot of things wrong. We're gonna find out. I'm not calling Tommy out, no. But yeah. Basically, so I basically went on a website, and it was really good how it explained it. I'll actually tell you what it's called, but I don't know if it'll freeze. But it was like nolo.com, and it really broke everything down really well. I'll link it in the description later on. Sometimes I forget to do that though. But basically, I laid out why I want to turn NVCAP into a nonprofit, and its mission statement of when NVCAP is going to be a nonprofit, what is it going to accomplish? And then basically I'm going to get into all of the things that NVCAP needs to do to turn into a nonprofit. Can't prove you're a nonprofit? I'll donate. If you can prove you're a nonprofit, I'll donate 200. No, we're not a nonprofit yet. We're not. I never said we're not. We're not a nonprofit. Plans to become a nonprofit, to be very clear. And since it's a very public organization, like I really think of it as, we all need to be NVCAP in a figurative sense, to accomplish what NVCAP is trying to do. None of these goals any one person can accomplish, and like not me, no one. Yeah, definitely we gotta catch it soon. Definitely gotta catch it soon. One guy, I'm actually surprised he didn't respond yet. He usually responds pretty quick. But he's like a real sick guy. But I'm gonna be actually out east in this area for like a couple weeks, or like I think 1 or 2 weeks. So place is getting renovated up in the Berkshires. So creep spotlight. So yeah, this isn't gonna be about any catches. Although actually before I get into it, huge thanks to PP Mass Jay for giving MVCAP kind of a shout out. We got a lot of new subscribers. And I really appreciate it. We were kind of stagnating a little bit. And it just made me honestly like want to like get out and like decoy. I'm like just about to decoy, but then I thought about like the forming a nonprofit side, so I did a bunch of research. So I'm actually gonna do DoorDash and then get a good amount of gas and kind of decoy like out there, and then begin the process of like getting catches. And also, another thing before I get into it is I did say that if like I might have had COVID because there was a relative that I spent the holidays with that had COVID, that did test positive for COVID. So I had kind of like a bad cough or whatever. And I was actually really sick before. So basically what I did was, I said that if I did have COVID, I wasn't gonna have any bad symptoms, but if I did have COVID, that I was gonna quarantine for 14 days and have to hold off on catches, if I was tested positive from the rapid test. But because I actually tested negative for the rapid test, I'm going to get into catches right away. So basically, we have some leads. So we're just going to get into a bunch of stuff right away as far as catches. So, so I tested negative, no COVID. So we're going in, so that's just one thing. So, one, I'm trying to figure out, I'll go into the mission statement first. What does NVCAP want to even do? What do we want to do? First of all, what is NVCAP? Maybe some people just are new to NVCAP. Maybe people don't know about NVCAP. What does NVCAP even stand for? What does it mean? NVCAP stands, one is NVCAP. It stands for Non-Violent Citizens Against Predators. So it's Non-Violent Citizens Against Predators. No, I'm saying that because the only reason why the purpose of the test was because I had, um, was because there was a relative that had COVID. Um, but because of that, it's ruled out. The reason why it's called that is because there is like a horrible stigma of really something that can be broken down into basic constitutional rights of journalism, doing stories on online predators, predator catchers. I really don't think that anyone has a right to do this. You know, and it's always like miscategorized as vigilantism and vigilantes, and that was something that really bothered me all the time because I'm like, we have a constitutional right to do this, and we have to really protect those constitutional rights and stand up for constitutional rights. So that's why it's kind of like in the name, non-violent citizens against predators, because no one can even try to argue that like we're in any way aggressive or in any way violent, especially if they see an NVCAP catch and then see the name. It'll be like you can't really say we're like beating people up. You can't make it's just making it as hard as possible to make the vigilante argument. Um, but yeah, so that's the name of nonviolence. That's the kind of the name NVCAP. That's kind of what NVCAP is. But here are the mission statements. Here are the mission statements. Yes, nonviolent citizens against predators. Yes, you're right, Jackie. Um, so, actually, one I'll just write as the first one. They're just bullet points. But one is to empower survivors of child sex abuse with resources that they need, making it so that they can just basically, you know, yeah, I'm a perfect person for it. I'm like, I don't seem like a violent person or whatever. So that's I'm a good cat. No. But also a huge thing is to make it so that we can figure out all kind of ways to empower survivors of child sexual abuse from these predators. Kind of enable it, so try to make it so that they can go to some source of reporting it within the statute of limitations. There's many ways of accomplishing that, but that's the general goal. The other one is to facilitate a better working relationship between investigative journalists that do stories on online predators and law enforcement. So creating a better working relationship between law enforcement and these us investigative journalists, i.e. predator catchers, so that it kind of just seems like when law enforcement and predator catchers first meet, they're like, what the fuck? They're like, what's going on? And they kind of fight, and they don't really. And it just seems like it's a mess. Some law enforcement are really good, and especially like I like Berkshire County. I like upstate New York. There are certain other ones that I like. That I mean, if anything, it's kind of just awkward when they first come in contact. It's like they don't get it at first. So like, but but then there are others that we know of in other areas, and I've actually seen those areas, but other areas that there isn't really a good working relationship at all. Where it's kind of like they'll call them vigilantes. They'll say leave law enforcement to law enforcement, which doesn't make any sense because we're not doing that. We're not. We can't enforce the law. Um, like we just gather information for people to enforce the law, like anyone else. Like in fact, most law enforcement gets their actual information from citizens anyway. That's like a weird thing to think about. Like if there's a break-in, who are they gonna ask? The witnesses. So it's all about witnesses. I mean, so um, but it's kind of just like a weird thing where there really is no system in place beforehand. So it's just kind of a mess. Um, no, I wouldn't speak that broadly. It really is like a spectrum. It's like some are, some aren't, and it's literally that. There's no way you can make a generalization. Yeah. you'll find out. Um, to establish guidelines and training to preg catchers so that we can do this in a safe and effective way. So rather than kind of like debating too much with the right way, and we should vary like generally about like maybe like certain organization does this, certain organization does that. Um, you know, um, you know, but in general, make it so that there are things in place that basically you could kind of just learn and learn how to do it the right way. Learn through guidelines that are already established, rather than just some weird like thing where they just kind of hash it out on the spot. Like something that's there where it's like if you're going to do this, you have the right to do this. This is the best way to do this, and they can't necessarily be like, oh, you just can't do this or you just shouldn't do this. We're not going to give you any kind of information. So um, stuff like that. Another one, to establish formal accreditation, um, meaning that so that let's say it'll kind of make it so that they'll have like this it'll kind of be an advocate for predator catchers, where they'll be like if there's like a predator catcher group that is doing it the right way and they're right to do it and they're not really being like empowered properly to do it, like we will kind of establish some kind of like accreditation where they basically are compliant to doing it the right way. And if they're compliant to doing it the right way, from this nonprofit that would have credibility, then there would be more weight to it than not of it being of it having headway in kind of working through law enforcement. I thought NVCAP was a nonprofit from day one. No, no, no. When you said you didn't want anyone giving you money ever. Oh no. So no. So that wasn't why. Yeah. No. No. So one, nonprofit means doesn't even mean you don't have donations. If anything, it's mostly funded by donations. Um. It's so nonprofit means that you just aren't necessarily, your business model isn't necessarily to make money. But if anything, you're going to make money for the resources of the nonprofit to sustain it, and to pay the people working at the nonprofit reasonably, not like a crazy amount of money, not like but like you'd be paid some kind of salary, something like that, something within reason, um, in proportion to the size of the nonprofit. But yeah, that's not the uh, yeah, but yeah, basically the reason why I was kind of like against taking any kind of money is because I didn't believe that we deserved it. I deserved it yet, or we deserved it, however you want to think about it. But now it's kind of getting to the point where it's kind of getting the ball rolling, and we're about to hit 1,000 subs anyway, and I'm actually gonna the uh first funding model is going to be using Patreon. I'm gonna form, and how it's gonna be is Patreon is gonna be like the first membership kind of thing, and then it's gonna trickle to memberships on YouTube. So basically, it's gonna be always the same, whatever one you would want. And basically, let's say I decide a new way of like changing the memberships or whatever it is. That's gonna be on Patreon first. So Patreon is gonna be like the guinea pig, the test, funding model, and then it's gonna be to then it's gonna go to the memberships. Um, and the model that's going to be formed on is basically interactions with the catches themselves and the activities of the cat, because in a way you're going to be kind of like a stakeholder in a way, in a figurative sense, not literally, but not literally. You're not going to actually be a stakeholder. Obviously, I'm not saying there's equity. I'm saying that uh, you know um, but it's in a way I kind of want to form it where basically what it would be is you being more involved with the activities of NVCAP rather than the public, I guess. Yeah, I'm not. Again, I'm not talking literally about stakeholders. That at a figurative sense, not actual stakeholders. It's a metaphor. I'm not. Yeah, no, I don't have anything yet. The one thing I have is Cash App, and I don't even remember the name of it. Um, user reparations for getting locked up with the pred in a hotel room. Maybe. No. So okay, so let's go on. To gather useful info on online preds, um, the technology they use, crack down on networks they operate in. You know, make it so that we can kind of set a precedent of make it so that kind of us networks, this network of investigative journalism, can basically, um, you know, uh, you know, um, can basically like provide really useful information to law enforcement about these online predators. You know, to keep up with technology. You know, too. And the last thing I kind of wrote down is protect the constitutional rights of investigative journalists doing stories on online predators. So basically, let's say there's like we'll kind of be like their lawyer, where let's say we have a predator catch. I would love to do this with like Musa, like let's say like there's a situation like him, like they locked him up for no reason. We would be totally on that situation. We'd be applying a crazy amount of pressure from the public. We wouldn't, and we would like any kind of lawyer fees we would pay. We'd basically be like, you go after it would be like you after one of us, you go after all of us. You mess with him, you mess with us, and it would be like it'd be like their lawyer almost. Like it'd be like we would be it's like some people would think like it's like a small group of kids like we can mess with them. Um, but then we'd step in and be like fuck no. Um, what? Sure, I googled his name and probably got a hit. Um, yeah. So yeah. So basically, I am kind of saying that, this is kind of being transparent about this is exactly what NVCAP wants to do. And now I want to talk about, I say, yeah, my accent. Um, Ryan, you got me all fucked up. What is your goal to be a journalist or a catcher? Both. And in a way, I'm kind of arguing, a catcher is an investigative journalist. That's what I would argue. I would argue they're both. I would argue a predator catcher. I would argue maybe you don't have to argue that. Um, well, NVCAP isn't a person; it's an organization. Journalists document and catchers report. Journalists report. Like investigative journalists, some investigative journalists were behind Watergate. Not behind Watergate, but they literally like gather information. But in a way, I do see like that. A journalist, a predator catcher is a journalist, or you're kind of like a useful informant to law enforcement in the event there is an online predator. Basically, um, you know that's kind of what I'm saying. And I use the word journalist because there's no like the word predator catcher isn't particularly used in a constitutionally protected sense, but journalist is. So whatever word we exactly want to use, I'm talking about basically freedom of the press and our rights of the freedom of the press. I would, or maybe reporter, I guess, if you want to think about it that way. Maybe journalist and reporter. Um, but no, I mean that's not true. I mean there is a precedent of investigative journalists forwarding information to law enforcement. That Sorry, that is true. Um, they do both, basically. Not mandated reporter. We're not mandated reporter. That's another thing. We're not that. I never. We're not mandated. We're just not. We're not mandated, but we're just reporting. On our own free will. So, yeah, so that's kind of what we want to do. And by the way, someone asked who is NVCAP. I mean, I don't mind being called NVCAP as like almost being referred to it as. I mean, my name's Ryan. I mean, I kind of like want to be as much NVCAP as possible, but technically, technically speaking, it's more of a it's more of a it's more of a organization. I mean, that's what it is. Okay. Yeah, I mean, as far as like the exact terms, I don't know. We can have that debate. We can have that debate. But yeah. In a way, yeah, anyone can join NVCAP. NVCAP is a way of life. Can you be vice for the pred catching community? You can be vice for the pred catching community. Vice. I don't know what that means. Vice. But yeah, so anyway, those are kind of like the mission statement. I have it written down. Um, oh, I see. I see. Yeah, no, that's not. I mean, I basically read the mission statement. That's what the goal of it is. All the goals I laid out is what we intend to do. It is to also continue like catching the predators that we catch, but also to even crack down on like bigger things, even traffickers, like higher organizational structures of it. But all the things, empowering victims of child sex abuse with resources, facilitating a better working relationship between predator catchers and law enforcement, establish guidelines and training, for pred catchers, to do it in a safe and effective way, to establish formal accreditation or compliance, to gather useful info on online preds, the technology they use, crack down on the networks they operate in, and to protect the constitutional rights of us, basically. You know, that's the yeah. So basically, both everything. I mean, low hanging fruit, high hanging fruit. I mean, I'm actually like basically right after this, I'm literally gonna do some DoorDash to like put some gas in my car, and I'm actually gonna decoy in Wog's area and start literally like literally like basically like maybe even an hour after I'll literally be decoying. So we catch, you know, yeah. I think of it as a movement. I agree. I agree, Brenda. And Brenda's a huge help to NVCAT. Yeah, I'll be the lawyer. I'll be a lawyer. I'll be a lawyer. I'll ask the judge who they're there to meet. Um. So okay. So now I already got the mission statement. So I asked how old am I? I look 12. Well, I am a decoy, so I'm kind of supposed to look 12. At my actual decoy age, I do 14. I am 27 though. But yeah, I'm supposed to look 12. The day I stop being able to look 12 is the day I have to find another decoy or something. I don't know. Do you see your activism as role playing? I don't know what that means. Um, but yeah. So yeah, so basically these are the mission statements. That's what they are. I mean, yeah, I'm 9. I'm 9. I am 9, bro. Yep, I'm 9. I'm 9. Yes, we're going to catch. We're going to catch. Like, literally, I'll put it this way. Basically, in about, like, an hour from after this live, I'm going to put gas in my car and go to where Wog lives, and I'm gonna decoy and try to get more catches. So I'm literally gonna be decoying about, like, 2 hours after this live. Like, within, like, today. You know, I actually took a little break from it because I was sick, but since I don't have COVID, I'm getting better. I'm gonna get back into it. But yeah, catches dropping. We got some leads. I'm gonna do more decoying. There's gonna be plenty of catches. All right. Scared to do a catch out here in New York City? No. It's kind of like a thing where I accepted the risk, whatever happens. At times I do get cautious. I do worry about like weapons and everything, but I'm down. Me and Tass and Vassus are gonna work together in New York City, and we're trying to you're welcome to come along too, and all that. So let's definitely hit New York City. NVCAP's definitely coming to New York City, and also we're actually looking for decoys too in that area. Well, actually, I won't get into that actually because I have very specific criteria for decoying. So discard everything I just said. Um, yeah, but we'll definitely. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go like alone. That wouldn't make sense to do that. I'm not gonna go alone in New York City because I don't think anyone should do that. But yeah, we're gonna roll in packs. Yeah, but yeah, well, nah, that was a joke. But like, in general, yeah, we're just gonna be a squad. We'll catch predators. Gonna be in New York City. It's gonna be good. I'm gonna view him as a tourist from another country. So I keep reading chat. I keep getting distracted. I have ADHD. Anyway, um, so those are mission statements. Now, why why is NVCAP trying to be a nonprofit to accomplish those mission statements? Um, One, separate entity status. So what does that mean? That means if, let's say, we get sued, NVCAP gets sued, then, which I would actually argue is a good reason for any person to be a nonprofit as a predator catcher. I'd argue the filing fees are usually low and the benefits are pretty worth it. Is if you get sued, you don't get sued. The nonprofit gets sued. So let's say NVCAP got sued for $10 million, and NVCAP doesn't have $10 million, then NVCAP goes bankrupt, and then NVCAP does not I won't pay $10 million. NVCAP NVCAP would. All of its assets would be diluted and everything. Or I think I just butchered that word. I think I used the wrong word. But all the assets would be dissolved. But you wouldn't individually be sued and have this huge lawsuit hanging over your head. But that won't happen. That shouldn't happen. But it does legally protect you. It's kind of like if your business gets sued, you don't personally get sued. It's kind of like that. Another thing is tax exemption, and it's on both sides. So, best of my knowledge, not only do nonprofits like pay any tax at all, I don't think, but if you donate to a nonprofit, and I mean, again, I mean, the reason why I'm kind of like putting everything transparent is, I mean, I could get something wrong, so if I do get something wrong, let me know. But if I'm correct, if you donate to a nonprofit, um, you actually can write it off on your taxes. So there's almost an incentive for donors to donate to nonprofits, and there's an incentive for the nonprofit to have that tax deduction. Because it's kind of like a service for the public. Now, another thing is credibility. So basically, it's kind of like, that's the whole thing. It's like giving us credibility. And save the receipts, definitely. I agree. I'm actually going to get into that. What we're going to need to do. Is, let's say, like, another predator catcher is being messed with. and we'll have a lot of credibility, we'll advocate for them. We'll say, you mess with them, you mess with us, you know, and we're not gonna let you guys mess with them, you know. So giving us credibility on that level is gonna, enable and empower predator catching nationwide, maybe up to worldwide. I don't know. But that's kind of the point, is to have some kind of system of credibility for us, you know. And another thing, this is huge. This is maybe the biggest reason, but access to grants. So, if I were easily me, with my bad credit, you know, couldn't get a loan to save my life or a grant, um, you know, it would be very difficult to get a grant to do predator catching. So, uh, you know, making it so that we have everything laid out the way it needs to as a nonprofit, we can actually have access to research grants, the grants that we should be entitled to basically fund NVCAP so it can do what it's trying to do. So making it so that we can, live off of the income and then kind of keep, the lights on in NVCAP and make it so that it can run as like basically like an institution. And that's how it's going to be run. It's going to be run basically as like a kind of like a public institution, Um, Nonprofits can write off gas, car payments, utilities, rent, insurance, pretty much everything but everyday food. Yep. Well, I hope what you're trying to do pans out for you, because I am confused as fuck. Sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, I'm literally about to decoy, so I will be. If there shouldn't be any confusion that I'm gonna not do catches, because I'm literally about to decoy, and we have leads. Actually, I don't know. I'm gonna check if a predator hit me back. Hold up. Did he hit me back? No. Fuck. Anyway, so access to those grants is gonna be a big deal. Now, I broke down how, uh, you know, NVCAP is gonna basically form as a nonprofit. So what does NVCAP need? So we're in Massachusetts. Um, so what we do need is a registered agent that lives in Massachusetts. I have an idea of who that's going to be, but that'll be a person basically that will be let's say like there's any kind of legal matter that's presented to NVCAP, someone that's going to get, let's say NVCAP is served legal papers or something. I agree with the save receipts. Yeah. Um, they basically, the registered agent gets it first, and then and then they basically send to NVCAP, and then we figure it out. Um, the person needs to have a mailing address, can't be a PO address, and they need to basically live in Massachusetts. So it has to basically be their house, or maybe it needs to be. Maybe we could make a corporate mailing address. I have no idea, but that person would need to be in Massachusetts and basically accept legal documents from NVCAP. Yeah, that's true. We can take out loans under our nonprofit. Exactly. Definitely. That's true. Which is another reason. So, we're gonna have a president. That's gonna be me. Or I don't know if you can have another president, but I have another person who that could be. But if you can only have one, which I don't know why it would be only one, that would be me. You need a treasurer, someone that would basically deal with the money. I kind of want someone who's better with money than me to do that. Um, yeah, I wouldn't really even want to do a loan. I mean, that's not even a good idea. Um, and we need a clerk. I'm actually not too sure what that is, but we need a clerk. Um, and we need a name registration. We already have a name, Nonviolent Citizens Against Predators, Incorporated, I guess. And so that would be the board. You don't actually need more than that, so that would literally be the board. You guys are good. Wow. Like you guys are like literally. That's what I was about to talk about. Like, yeah, you guys are getting ahead. Um, yeah. So we need basically those four people. So someone that basically wants to answer to the legal stuff and kind of get the information first, and they live in Massachusetts. That's who I'm kind of looking for. The president's gonna be me. Treasurer is gonna be someone that's just good with money. I don't know about the clerk, and and yeah. So the next thing on the next step is articles of organization. Um, Nonprofit name. We already figured that out. Nonprofit statement of purpose. We already kind of figured that out. One or more classes of members. Usually that only happens if it's like a really big nonprofit, and they say that's not usually applicable, so I don't think it is applicable. So disregard that. And statements of bylaws and directors' appointments. So basically, whoever we appoint to the president, treasurer, clerk, all that's registered agent, that has to be put in writing somewhere. And what is a bylaw? Bylaws are rules and procedures of how directors are appointed and all that stuff. Basically, of how NVCAP is run. Um, you know, that would be in compliance with the laws and regulations of a nonprofit in that area for state and federal guidelines. So yeah, the effective date of the articles, usually the date of the filing, the street address, the names, and the addresses of the directors. So the only thing is that the address of these directors may need to be public. That's something I think might not be able to be avoided. Like something you can look up is because Tommy from Colorado Pet Patrol, he has a nonprofit. You also have his address because it's public information technically. So yeah, so that's a pretty bad drawback considering what we're doing. I don't know if I could figure something out. Maybe I can make it so that there can be a PO box or something, but I'm gonna figure that one out. But I'm just gonna kind of be transparent about everything, all of its obstacles. Yeah, the fiscal year, name of the registered agent, um, the IRS exemption language has to have the statement of purpose that meets the IRS requirements, the statement of the nonprofit that will not engage in unrelated activities. So you have to kind of establish already what you're doing. Yep, I agree. Only people we can trust. And also a dissolution clause for dedicating the dissolution of assets. So what that means is, let's say NVCAP basically goes bankrupt and we need to dissolve our assets. We have to figure out beforehand a plan of what we do when that happens. Let's say we end NVCAP, and does NVCAP go this much to this person? How is it figured out? How would the assets be dissolved in the event it had to? But it did say that some things can be PO boxes, so I just have to figure that out. And then the next thing is prepare the bylaws, the rules, procedures, and then we follow holding meetings, electing officers, directors, and corporate obligations of the state. And then the first meeting. I don't know if these meetings have to be in person. I hope they're not. It would be a lot easier if they didn't have to be in person. Considering some court rulings, you can be virtually present. I mean, there's a court ruling where I don't want to get too legal, but and I don't know if this applies, but there was a case in Massachusetts where because it was a girlfriend that was making her boyfriend commit suicide and she was texting him she was considered virtually present. So I don't know if virtually present is an official legal uh, term of, you know, of being legally present. So I think that in Massachusetts, it could be argued really that you can be virtually present. So I don't know if it works that way, but I feel you can be virtually present on these meetings, and we can do them virtually. It'd be a lot easier, and I think you can. I mean, courthouses are done virtually, so I mean, yeah. Hey, Cora, what's up? Um, and there was some mention of licenses, like you have to get the required business permits and licenses. Um, and but I don't think there are any needed. I mean, we're nothing we're doing is really of an official capacity, and we're doing nothing that we don't have the right to do. So I don't think that we need one. So yeah. Um, and yeah. So the official tax filing is called a 503c3. So it's actually right. Um, and we're almost done. Obtaining an employer identification number. Just figuring that out. I already, and then you would have to file an annual report of $15. Pretty easy. File the form 1023 for the federal tax exemption, and then get the Massachusetts uh, tax exemption of the 501c3 exemption. Um, yeah. So, and then also, if we are operating in other states, because we will, we also have to be mindful of those state regulations of nonprofits and figure all that stuff out. So yeah, so there are a couple unanswered questions, clearly, but this is basically the crux of it. And yeah, I believe that, yeah, that's about it. Um, you know, Again, the purpose is forming the nonprofit is access to grants, credibility, tax exemption status, separate entity status, and the mission statement is to empower survivors of child sex abuse to resources they need, to facilitate a better working relationship between investigative journalists, i.e. predator catchers, that do stories on online predators and law enforcement, to establish guidelines and training to predator catchers in a safe and effective way, to establish formal accreditation and compliance guidelines, to gather useful info on online predators, the technology they use, and to crack down on larger networks they operate in, and to protect the constitutional rights of investigative journalists, i.e. predator catchers, doing stories on online predators. So, yeah, so I was gonna get to questions. Why don't you take the classes on the stuff and how to do grants? Cost of classes is a write-off then. Yeah, yeah, we could look into that. I don't know, however we do it. Um, and yeah, any questions? Because it's kind of like a public thing. Like I just literally said my business plan. You should apply for a press pass. I agree. I agree. We should. I think that I don't. I'm gonna learn about that stuff. But yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're kind of gonna find the people that are. So just keep in mind that we're kind of looking for those kind of people. I'm gonna figure out who those people are, if they legally have to live in Massachusetts or not. But we're gonna try to figure out who these people are. Who these people, we're trying to figure out like who the best person for the job is, basically. Any questions? Any questions? Comments? Ask Joe Biden if he likes sniffing kids' hair. Will do. You shan't be a thou. What? There is no such thing as a press pass. The company you work for give them to you. Any more questions? Any more questions? Any questions? Comments? Yeah, then pretty much right after this live, I'm gonna basically do some DoorDash, so I can get some gas in my car and stuff like that, and then I'm gonna be decoying. Well, you need something to say any press. No questions. Good morning and good night. Yeah, let's get some serious questions, or if there aren't any, I'll end it off in about a minute. Just gonna see if there's any kind of questions. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all set. So yeah, that's my plan. I'm gonna literally do DoorDash, fill up some gas in my car, and move to where WOG is, and start doing decoying. And then we're not gonna get a catch tonight because we wouldn't be able to get a catch that quick. And WOG has work tomorrow and everything. I was gonna get the ball rolling, decoying again, and yeah, begin the process, get it back into it. But yeah. Be a journalist, travel across America, and go on catches with catchers and report on it live. DoorDasher don't make shit. Wait till your car mess up, and it's all on you. It sucks. Stay safe, Ryan. Go to Walgreens. Okay. PP Ruthless gonna get that catch tonight. Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna end it off. Thanks for tuning in to NVCAP's plan, and to all good night. And I'm hitting end live session. So if it does not, if the live doesn't end, it's not my fault because I'm literally hitting the word end live session. Yeah, and I'll figure out the cough. Once he's a nonprofit, he can write off car maintenance. Yeah, I gotta go. All right, good talk.